Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different because I have been talking a lot about getting organized and creating structure in your life. And while that does really help me, sometimes I do fall back into this, we are creatures of habits and we don't necessarily like change. And it can be really hard sometimes when things change, especially if I didn't expect them to, or if I didn't plan on it. And even if I do plan on it, sometimes it's just difficult. It's hard. It's hard when things change. And so today I want to talk about a tool that has helped me to kind of prevent these feelings from happening, because change is always going to happen. There's nothing I can do about that. But I can help myself dealing with it and maybe prevent the surprise of change by accepting change and maybe even preempting change by changing myself. So the tool that I want to talk about today is rethinking. So I really like this metaphor of imagine you have your computer or your phone or your iPad or any digital device, and every now and then in the settings, it has a software update that you need to install. And you can push it back for a while, but at some point you have to install the new software update because your phone isn't compatible anymore with all the new updates from your apps and all of that stuff. So imagine a software update, but for yourself. And that's basically what I mean by rethinking. So I actually looked up the definition of rethinking, and to rethink means to consider or assess something, especially a course of action, again, especially in order to change it. So I think the important part of this definition is that again, to reconsider it, reassess it, readjust it, whatever, but to do it again, to look at it again, and that the point of it is to change it. So you're moving towards the change. You're not running away from it or pushing it away. You are approaching the change. That is inevitable, as scary as it is. So now that we know what I mean by rethinking, I want to talk about why it could be important for your life and why it might help you to create a better life with maybe even a little bit less anxiety and fear. Because at the end of the day, I think change is something that we do want to kind of close our eyes to sometimes because we just can't deal with it all, at least for me. And learning to rethink and kind of looking at change as inevitable and positive can give a lot of comfort in life, which then allows you to focus on better things. Okay, so why? I think rethinking is almost like you are choosing to improve. So don't just use the word change, but you are improving by rethinking something. There's so many examples in this world where humans were rethinking things that they have done for years and decades and, forever. And that allowed us to improve, whether it's digital devices. I think the first digital device was, when we were just able to call on the phone and not do much else. And then they had to rethink that and say, well, maybe we do want a whole computer instead of just the calls. And there's so many examples in this world where rethinking was fundamental to get society to where we are now. So scale it down into a personal benefit. It's definitely something that you can use, a tool that you can use to chase that improvement rather than just waiting for it to come around and see what you can do with the change. So that's one way to look at it. But then that put aside, rethinking is going to impact your whole daily life. For example, if you have the capability to rethink, for example, your beliefs, then you might be able to have better conversations with people that might not be like-minded. Maybe you can create more depth in your depth depth in your relationships, because you start to question your own values and morals and thoughts. When you don't rethink, you might come on quite headstrong and not like open for conversation and discussion and getting to know each other, because you're not open to it, right? So I think rethinking can open a lot of doors in relationships and friendships, building social connections. And then on top of that, for yourself as well, rethinking can help you in making better decisions. So let's say, for example, which hand you're going to write with, right? Like at some point, someone or you yourself made a decision to write with your right hand or your left hand. And then some of us actually changed that up. They switched it up because they realized, probably because someone questioned it and rethought it, that the other hand felt better, or they were left-handed or right-handed and not what everyone thought they were. So decision making is another big one where rethinking can have a really positive impact. And then of course just conversations in general, right? Like all kinds of conversations are built on understanding of each other's points and point of views. And if you don't have the capability of rethinking and questioning what you are saying, you're always going to get stuck in the same loop of conversations, and they're always going to, you might have killer phrases, you don't even realize that you're killing the conversation because you've never thought about it. So I think it's almost like a way of living more mindfully by questioning your thoughts and actions and how you live your life. So I think I've talked a lot about the reasons why you might want to start to rethink and use the tool of rethinking to build a better life. And I think, like I said at the start, one of the main reasons is just the ability to adapt. If you rethink things, you are adaptable. You're not stuck in stone. Written in stone? What is it? I don't know, but you know what I mean. You can adjust. And if you can adjust and adapt, that equals growth, because growth can only happen with change. Only through change something can grow. Like the best example is a plant, right? Like the seed isn't a seed anymore once the plant grows. It grows into a plant. It's something else now. It's changed. Or like, the butterfly, like from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's growth is in change. So if you are adaptable, that eventually leads to growth. And it just gives you so many more possibilities, because basically what you are doing in your brain is you're looking at life in a way of seeing all the possibilities. So it's a place of abundance. You're coming from a place of abundance because you're thinking, what else could I do? What else is there for me? What are the alternatives? So you're saying to yourself, there are alternatives. There are other options. There's so many opportunities in front of you. Whereas when you don't have this capacity to rethink, you usually are stuck in this one thought pattern or action, and it doesn't give you this opportunity. It's this feeling of limitations and barriers that you can't cross, and sometimes you don't even know why. Yeah. Okay, so before I start talking about how we can become better at rethinking in our daily lives, I do want to give you two more examples that I think are really impressive of how rethinking really changed the world and lives. The first one is from the book The Ikigai Journey by García Miralles. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The Ikigai Journey by García Miralles. So I actually love this book. So there's Ikigai and then there's the Ikigai Journey, which is more like a diary where you can write into as well. You should check it out. It's actually, I really enjoyed it, and it helps a lot with vision building. So in that book, there's this example of the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train in Japan. And I don't know if you know about it, but the Shinkansen is actually super fast. So what happened was there was the Tokyo Olympics were happening, or they were gonna happen, and they had this normal train going from Osaka to Tokyo or the other way around, and it took over 6 hours. And because they had the Olympics, they wanted it to be a lot faster, and they said we needed to be under 4 hours, I think, which is like almost half of the time. And that's not possible to achieve by simply just speeding up the train, because there's a reason why it's not going faster, right? Like it's not going to stay on the tracks, or it's not going to be safe. So, or it's just simply not able to move that fast. So what they had to do, they got a really big budget, if I remember it correctly, and they had to figure it out. But it's like, how do we figure this out? Like, it's just impossible. We're not going to be able to make it faster than this. Maybe a little bit, like some tweaks and stuff. So what they did was they rethought the whole concept of a train. And they ended up changing the look of the train to make it more aerodynamic, which is crazy because back then the trains, they were like rectangular, like, trains. So they changed it. They had this nose that was really long and the wind, like aerodynamic. They also rethought the whole track construction to make sure that it's safe, and just did a whole lot of other advanced safety systems and stuff that they came up with just out of the blue. They had to rethink the whole concept of what is a train, and they were able to get it under 4 hours, which is crazy. So from over 6 hours to under 4, the same distance, the same length. It's insane. And the Shinkansen is also just really comfortable. I don't know if you've ever been on it, but it's actually a really cool train. So that's one of the examples where a whole group of people had to rethink and reconstruct this concept that was so known and normal, and no one ever thought to question it until then. And then the other example that I want to talk about is from the book Think Again by Adam Grant. And it's at the very start, and it was actually such a good hook to the book. It's a bit of a sad story, but it's about these firefighters, and there was a fire and they had to escape, and they were running away, and it was really close. And there was this one guy, one of the firefighters, that decided to stop. So he stopped running, and I think he was like, oh, I'm gonna set a fire here. So he set like a bit of a fire and burned down this part, and then just stayed in that burnt down part and went low because, heat arises. So obviously the lower you are, the better. And the fire, that area that was already burnt down, it didn't catch any more fire. So he actually survived through the fire, which is insane. And that is so impressive that in this fight or flight moment, he was able to rethink that. That's crazy. And just question, wait, what am I doing? Why am I running from this? I could be doing this. And just rethinking it all. So I wanted to share those two stories to show how valuable the capability of rethinking can be in your life, whether it's in job or to survive or whatever. So those are the two examples. And there is one more example that I want to talk about that wasn't in a book that I read, but that I've applied it to, and that is how to respond to arguments and confrontation. So I think this is something that a lot of people go through when they're growing up and becoming adults. Maybe if they, and I think most kids went through at least one situation where maybe they didn't feel safe, or maybe they thought it would be disrespectful to speak up and speak their mind, not in a rude way, but just in a, I really didn't like this way. And so maybe as a kid, maybe you can relate to this. Maybe whenever there was arguments or confrontation happening, you would maybe go up into your room and not come out until the next day and act like nothing ever happened. And so back then that was the safe response. And maybe you were still doing this up to now. So being able to question that action and that response and think to yourself, do I still need to do this? Am I still unsafe to confront it and to speak up? Or is this something that I'm holding on to that doesn't serve me anymore at this point in my life? So being able to rethink that might really change the way that you handle those tough conversations, maybe in a more calm way, and it'll probably leave you feeling better as well. Okay, so those are my examples. Now let's get into the fun part, and that is, how can we start rethinking more? Because a lot of the time we're in this autopilot and we just live. We go to work every day and we do this every day. We work out every day. We talk to our friends and our family and maybe our partners every day. And maybe we don't question every single thing we do. I do question a lot. And I'm sure there's other people out there that question themselves a lot. which isn't always good because sometimes it leaves you spiraling almost and you can't let it go. And there's always something that you could have done better. But there are still instances where I don't do that. And I don't know where I was going with this thought. But I want to talk about how you can start rethinking, because it can be tricky to that's what I was going to say. It can be hard to pull yourself out of the autopilot and stop and rethink what you're doing or what you're saying. If you're so used to it, or if you've never seen it any differently, if you've never done it differently, then it's hard. So here are some steps and some points to consider to learn getting better at rethinking in your daily life. So the very, very first, the basis to everything, the foundation, is basically that you want to become a scientist. So I want you to look at your life like you are the scientist and you are conducting research and experiments. So your daily moments and actions and thoughts and all of that, those are your experiments. That's your research. That's how you're gathering information. And then you, as the researcher, as the scientist, you are the one to evaluate it, analyze it, gather the information, and so on, if that makes sense. So you want to get into this feeling of being a scientist. And this might make sense, but a lot of the time, especially if we have strong beliefs, so for example, political beliefs or religious beliefs or health-wise, we can get into this judgy kind of vibe, right? Where we don't really listen, we just wait to respond, really, because we are so certain in what we believe in and that that's right, that we kind of forget to actively listen to other people and maybe question ourselves. Not that you have to change your mind, but being open to it. So the whole basis, the foundation for all of this is to become a scientist in your life. You are the scientist in your life. And I think an adjective that I like to use for this scientist mindset is curious. So instead of being confident, which is good, don't get me wrong, confidence is always good, but instead of being super confident that you know everything and you do everything right or you do everything wrong or you don't know anything at all, you want to become curious. So change the confidence into curiosity. Well, I am feeling like I'm always wrong, but the other day I actually got this right, So I wonder, can I be both at the same time? Let me observe this. Let me gather some information. So look at your life with more curiosity rather than confidence, which then allows you to question more. So with this confident versus curious mindset, I want to give you two examples that I thought would be kind of funny. So the first one is rainbows. So someone with a confident mindset, when we were kids, we probably all learned about how we can see rainbows, like what are rainbows? Why do we see them? And to be honest, I still have to look it up sometimes because I forget. I know it's something about the molecules and how the angle is shining in, but and the water, or I don't know. See, I have to look it up again, and that's bad because I'm a teacher. But that's okay because So someone with a confident mindset might say, well, rainbows are just light and water and it's basic and nothing more to know. That's it. I know it and that's fine. But someone with a curious mindset might say, I know it involves light and water, but I wonder how exactly this works. What kind of angle does it need? How does this affect what I see? What is happening with my eyes that I see this? And why, questioning it, being curious to know more. I know the basic, but what else is there to know? So that's one example. And then the other one is, the flat earth theory. So someone with a confident mindset might be like, flat earthers are just ignorant, they're so stupid, why would you even believe that when we literally know that the earth is round? That's just dumb, end of story. So that would be a confident mindset. But then a curious mindset might be not, I wonder if they're right. If that's what you want to think, then that's fine too. But maybe the curious mindset might just be like, I wonder why they started believing this. Like, what is going on in their brains that makes them think this? Where is their evidence coming from? What kind of psychological factors are at play here that makes them believe this? And that is so interesting. I find it very interesting to think that way. And then maybe even think, how could we better communicate the science so that people believe the science? Because we know that there is the science, but then there's also still people that believe otherwise. So how could we create a better communication so that there's no more uncertainty with it? So those are two examples of confident versus curious mindset. And I think those are going to get you really far already. Because whenever I approach something with a curious mind rather than a confident mind, I find that I can build a much better connection and understanding to that person or thing. And it also allows me to sympathize and empathize with that person, which then leads to, feeling more connected at the end of the day, right? Because we all want to be understood. Yeah, okay. Now let's look at the steps of how to become a scientist so you can start rethinking more. So number one is you have to detach your beliefs from your identity. So your beliefs are, a lot of people think their beliefs, even if they don't realize it, but a lot of people think their beliefs are the truth. They're their truth, at least. Maybe not the truth, but they know that they're their truth, and they're set in stone. Oftentimes they're black and white. They don't change. They're truths. It's always like that. And there's nothing that's going to change my mind. What you want to do instead is you want to detach from that belief and look at it as a hypothesis. So remember, you're a scientist, right? So your beliefs, they're hypotheses. Hypothesis? Am I saying this right? Hypothesis. They can be challenged, they can be tested, they can be analyzed, they can be proven, but they can also be misproven. And that's really interesting. So look at your beliefs as hypotheses to conduct experiments with. Also, another way to detach your identity from your beliefs is to look at changing your mind not as failing. Because a lot of the time, maybe growing up, you were taught that changing your mind is bad and it means that you're wrong and that's bad. But changing your mind is, like I said at the start, change is growth. So changing your mind means you are growing, which is good. It's positive, even if it doesn't feel like it. And especially if you can detach it from your identity, it doesn't mean you're losing a part of you. It's just your belief that is changing. You're still the same person, and that's fine. That can coexist. Both can be true at the same time. So let your views evolve as you learn more, and be okay with that. Look at it as a celebration. It's like, wow, I've just realized this. I've come to the realization that actually Earth is not flat, and I'm proud of myself for that change that has happened within me. Okay, so detach your identity from your beliefs. Now, number 2 is mistakes are growth. So learn that mistakes are growth, because remember, mistakes are very similar to changes. So finding comfort in being wrong will lead you to growth, because then if you are able to look at something and say, oh, I've made a mistake here, once you've made this mistake, even in your brain, you start thinking, how can I change it to get it right? And so change again is going to lead to growth. Without mistakes, it's so hard to grow, because why would you change anything if everything is right? So mistakes are really good, and being able to admit that to yourself, to admit I was wrong or I don't know, that will lead you to growth and to question things. Because a lot of us, I don't know about you, but when I realize that I don't know something or I'm wrong about something, then I start to question myself and rethink it, which is exactly what we want. So it can be the gateway into rethinking. So look at mistakes as growth. Acknowledge what you don't know and what you're wrong about. Be comfortable saying I was wrong, I'm not sure. Look at being mistaken as a strength. It's changing your mindset from mistakes are bad to mistakes help me grow. And remember to disconnect your identity from those beliefs, because otherwise it gets really tough, right? Because every time you make a mistake, you think you messed up, when that's not right. It's just, that's the mistake. The action was wrong, not you. The action was wrong. Okay, number 3, look. So number 2 is more like, a mistake happens and you mess up and then you start to question it and rethink. But number 3 goes even a little bit further. And instead of waiting for the mistake to happen, what you want to do is look for gaps in your beliefs and in your actions. Look for the gaps, find the gaps, actively search for gaps, for mistakes, for problems, for things that don't add up quite in your thinking and in your patterns. So actively look for that. Look for unanswered questions and unresolved problems. Where is it not adding up? Is it bulletproof? Could it be challenged? Look at it from someone else's point of view. How could I challenge this? How could I see it differently? And is there something missing? And then test it out with any belief and any action. So look for mistakes, actively look for mistakes in your thinking. Try to prove yourself wrong. It's a really fun activity. Maybe you want to shoot a basket and you're saying like, I can never shoot a basket. Try and prove yourself wrong. Like, see if you can shoot one. And then you've proven yourself wrong. You've tested it and you have misproven your hypothesis, your belief that you are never able to shoot that shot. So try to prove yourself wrong. Test your beliefs to find blind spots. So like I just said, test it out and challenge your own assumptions. So I think the best question for this one is maybe, what am I missing? Or is there a gap? Is there an unresolved problem or something that I'm not looking at? So basically, I think what would really help with this one is to, I think I did this in the first episode or something, but zoom out, zoom out so that you can look at it from bird's view and not in your head, because in your head you're very subjective and you're so in your head, So zoom out and think about it objectively, like where is something missing? Like there's something else that I can do, and identify it before you make the mistake. That would be even better, right? So that's number 3. Look for the gaps, actively seek those gaps. And then number 4 is to rethink. So you've made it to rethinking, which is reflecting and updating your views and your beliefs and your actions regularly. So that's it. Now you're rethinking and you are a proper scientist in the making, constantly looking for new experiments and research that you can conduct and analyze and evaluate and find more gaps and then do it again the next time. So yeah, and that's all I've written down. That's all of my notes for today. I thought this was a really interesting one. I'm a little bit low energy today. I'm not sure why, but I hope you still enjoyed this anyways. I think it's really interesting and it's something that we can always work on, because especially as you get older, I think I remember learning in high school, I don't know if this is true, but they used to tell us like after 47 it's not worth trying to change someone, like trying to question someone, because they're so set in their ways. And I think there's like this graph where you have like experiences that have acknowledged that you're right, like how many experiences have you had that have supported your belief versus what you're being told, or no, I don't remember what it was, but basically because they've had so many experiences with that belief that has been confirmed basically by them, it is so hard to challenge it and question it. So rethinking is something that we have to relearn over and over again, because it's never ending, and hopefully it's never ending, because only if we start to rethink and reconsider our life and how we view things and do things is how we can grow. And only if we grow we can start building our best lives, right? So it comes all full circle. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you again next time. Bye. Sorry, I actually forgot to summarize at the end. So I just wanted to summarize real quick. So in order to rethink, we want to become scientists. We want to start thinking like scientists. And in order to do that, these are the steps that you want to take. Number 1, detach your identity from your beliefs. Number 2, look at mistakes as growth. Number 3, search for the gaps in your thinking, and then number 4, start to rethink. And that's it. I hope that made sense. Bye.